What's up, y'all? Welcome to the Godzilla Masterclass. Super excited to break down this Godzilla short film we made entirely inside of Unreal Engine 5. From the animation to the effects, we're going to break down everything. I really today want to focus in on filmmaking inside of Unreal Engine because I think there's so much out there covering all the tiny little features in Unreal Engine. You can learn any one-off trick, but how do you tie it all together and tie that into a film? Turn it, have your creative vision come to life and have it look like your favorite Hollywood movies. That's what I absolutely love, and super excited to see all y'all here. Navid from Atlanta, Georgia. A green stream. Looks like an animation movie. That's super cool. But yeah, super excited to jump right into it. I think there's lots that we'll cover. Whether you're just at the beginning, you've never touched Unreal, we're gonna break right into the filmmaking workflows and how to be creative inside what could be a technical system with Unreal Engine. We're gonna skirt past all the technical stuff and show you how to work creatively. And then I'll also show you some really cool tactics, some techniques I picked up over years of working on Hollywood films myself and how I was able to apply those inside of Unreal Engine. You guys excited? We're gonna also show off the film really early here, so take another look at it and then we'll break it down, go through all the nitty-gritty details and show you how you can do the same thing. And don't worry, if you're a beginner here, the whole point of today is to really show you that you don't need to be a professional animator. You don't need to be a pro at any of these things to make your first film. And I really want to give you a super clear roadmap so you can do the same thing. You guys excited? Let's jump into it. So let's pull up my screen here and look at the fun stuff. Let's hop into the Godzilla Masterclass. All right, so this is what we are going to be building today. Is looking at how we're able to imitate and create that Hollywood level look using Unreal Engine renders. This is the same Unreal that you guys have. I'm not doing anything special other than the artistic techniques that you're gonna learn today. Because yeah, the Unreal Engine is so amazing. Now you can work in real time, you can be creative, and working in that game engine just means that you're able to work faster. That's what is so cool about it. So today we're gonna talk about how to make your own films without these crazy Hollywood budgets, how we can do it ourselves at home with one computer, and really build something you're super proud of and that competes with the Hollywood level films out there. It's been really cool to see the reception of the Godzilla short itself. So yeah, we'll take a look at it here right now. So without further ado, let's take a look at Godzilla in Unreal 5. And so what is so amazing is that I truly believe now, after this project, after I've now made a few animated films in Unreal, that now anyone can truly make these Hollywood level shots and make your own films using this game engine software. So today I want to go through all the breakdowns, show you what it took, how we went from that original idea all the way to a final film in just about 5 weeks. You're able to do a lot in a very short amount of time to try to also hit this quality level. It's not just a technical limitation, it's an artistic limitation of a lot of people. So I definitely want to dive in and share some of those artistic techniques. I think I've picked up quite a few that we can jump into and show you how we're able to produce shots that look like this. So I really do want to help you do the same thing. I'm holding nothing back. I want to give you the secrets. And why this is so important to me is because I started off just like you, right here on YouTube. I was starting off, before I got my start in the industry, I was in a small town in Wisconsin, with a city of 8,000 people, watching Star Wars, going to the movie theater, and just being amazed at these huge movies. And I'd go back home, I'd look on YouTube, I'd look up the behind the scenes, I'd find the DVDs, and I would just wear those out. I literally can remember so many summers at my grandma's house. It's just where we were there, and I would just watch the Attack of the Clones behind the scenes over and over and over again. And from that early age, I just knew, like, I got to figure out how to do this myself. I got to figure out how to make that. I got to figure out how to make this my career. And if anything, that's where I feel the most lucky, is that I just had that clarity very early on. But the reality is, I started off with very low stats. So I was no one special. I didn't know anyone in the industry. I grew up in a small town. I didn't have some uncle or aunt or grandma, grandparent in the industry. I knew nobody, no single person, and I was completely self-taught on YouTube. So that's why now, on the flip side, years later, I was there hoping and dreaming of working on Star Wars for such a long time. And thankfully, 8-9 years beyond, I've had the chance to work on blockbuster movies like Godzilla vs. Kong, Star Wars 9, Maleficent 2, Alien, Deadpool 2, a lot of 2s, Fantastic Beasts 2, whatever. A lot of sequels coming out, but that's been the big transformation there. And I bring it up because when I was starting out, I was just searching for anyone that had done the same thing. Like, what is this path I can follow? And this whole journey, after going through the Hollywood visual effects system, I actually ended up using Unreal Engine for the first time on set of Avatar: The Last Airbender. So that was my big foray into using Unreal Engine every day, controlling the volume, and being there for every shot and making a sequence shot by shot. So that was a super fun show. I had the chance to shadow on Star Trek episodes as well, and build some environments for virtual production. So at this point, I'm fast forwarding through like 2.5 years of not knowing Unreal to where we're at now. But thankfully, I've had the chance to use Unreal in production, and I really just want to tell you what's working today in studios. Not just some opinion. Lots of opinions on YouTube. You can find a million of them, but it's hard to find what actually works today. So I've made films in Unreal with motion capture, and more recently, I've turned to actually helping filmmakers make films themselves in Unreal. So this is Jonas, otherwise known as Zalushi. He has a really awesome YouTube channel. It just hit 500K subs, which is congrats to him. But he's been using Unreal Engine to actually put himself into Star Wars 2. So it's come full circle. It's been super cool. But that is really the power of Unreal. That really, if you take what I'm teaching you today and you actually apply it, the 25% of you out there that take this seriously, that write notes and actually go and integrate what I'm about to tell you, this is the blueprint. This is the roadmap, and I'm giving it all out because, man, this was so hard. And again, I'm fast forwarding through years here, but it took a lot of hard work to get there. So it doesn't matter if you're not in a big city, you don't have connections. In fact, the director of Godzilla 2014 also started out as a self-taught visual effects artist. He made his own visual effects in films, and that's why that Godzilla 2014 movie was so instrumental to me. I remember going opening night, that Thursday at midnight, and just being in awe, because I'd followed his career going from an independent filmmaker making his own visual effects on a movie called Monsters in 2011 to then, eventually making Godzilla in 2014. And it's actually really cool. He started off using After Effects, being self-taught on YouTube, on FX PhD at the time, because YouTube wasn't even there early. But yeah, we're all trying to do the same thing. And that's why I really do believe,
Hello, my name is
from the bottom of my heart, that, like, if he could do it, what's stopping me? When I was watching those behind the scenes of Star Wars, it was like, I can see all these craftspeople doing this for a living. Like, if they can do it, why can't I? And so, yeah, that's really what brought me to just hoping and watching Godzilla in 2014 to actually working as a lead compositor on Godzilla vs. Kong. And again, I want to share some of the cool techniques I learned in the studio and how I recreated them inside of Unreal, so you can do the same thing. And yeah, last thing here, I'm basically, I think the next generation of filmmakers is not going to come from the studio system. We're watching the studio system implode around us. The whole thing is getting turned on its head. I genuinely think this is our opportunity for the rest of us, the indie filmmakers out here that want to write and produce and direct their own films. This is our opportunity to make small teams and make these huge productions that just totally blow Hollywood out of the water. And that's, if I can have one person do that, that's what I'm going to be doing. You can watch the whole journey on the channel from here for the next 5 years. But if one other person in this chat can take something out of this to make a better film, then we've done our job. So you guys excited? We want to jump into Unreal? Let's go there. So how many projects have you guys made inside of Unreal Engine? I want to get a grasp on where we're at. What is your skill level? If it's 0, just let me know. Put 0 in the chat. That's totally fine. I want to know if it's mostly beginners here, if we're mostly advanced people. Yeah, Arthur, we're at 0. Newman, we're at 0. 5 from Hagen Kona. That's super cool. So today's really going to be about filmmaking first and foremost. And but before we jump into that, the last thing I want to touch on really quick, and then we're going to go right into literally how I went from previs to the all the way inside of Unreal Engine, is the big question a lot of people ask me is, why should I be using Unreal Engine? Like, I could be using Blender, right? There's other software out there, there's other options. And I think if you're not clear about why we're using this at the beginning, you lose all of the benefits of Unreal Engine. So if you're asking that question, I've seen this comment so many times, especially on the most recent thing, is like, whoa, you must need a supercomputer or a render farm or like the most beefy, like an $8,000 machine just to render this out. And this would be true 10 years ago, 5 years ago even. You would need a render farm to make this quality of film. And for the people at home, that's just totally impossible. That can get very expensive, very complex. And the bottom line is you don't need super expensive computers anymore if you're using Unreal Engine. So I think a lot of people, they know they want to make films, they're super passionate, but they're just clawing on like, what am I supposed to learn? Like, so many people are telling you to learn Maya, or you need to learn Houdini if you want to make it in the industry, or Cinema 4D if you want to do motion graphics, and we're all getting pulled in these different directions instead of just deciding on the one thing that's going to get us where we want to go. So that's why it is worth kind of focusing in on why should we use Unreal Engine. And the number one reason is because this is the alternative. The alternative is waiting around for noisy, pixelated renders. If you've seen this screen, if you've used Maya or Blender or any other render in the past, you know how slow traditional CGI can be. And the biggest problem that I find with old school visual effects, as someone who's worked at the studios, is that you're actually punished for adding more detail. The more detail you add, the longer your render times take. And I don't like playing that game. I don't like sacrificing my quality for how fast I can render this out. So if we try to imitate the traditional visual effects pipelines, we're gonna have a bad time. We can't do what the visual effects studios do. So if we wanna make films now in 2024, the real solution is real-time rendering. That's why we're using Unreal Engine, is because it's real-time. It's like working on a movie set where you're working with actors and you're able to move the lights around and just see everything live right there in the viewport. Otherwise, we're constantly hitting roadblocks from the old school renders. So we're not sacrificed by adding in more detail and more geometry. With Unreal Engine, I look at it as your no-cost film school where you can make anything, any environment, big or small, using free assets, free environments, free animations, and really make some incredible projects just like this. You're no longer limited by the amount of geometry, and we can work in real time. With Nanite and Lumen, those are the two huge advantages in Unreal 5, and that's what's allowing us to do this. So whether you want to make stylized films or perfectly photoreal films or Godzilla level visual effects, it's all the same thing. It's all coming from Unreal Engine. And we're going to use it today to focus in on how to practice filmmaking, how I was able to make that Godzilla short from idea to finished film. We also had a Dune Masterclass last month or 2 months ago at this point. Had some really cool student work. So if you want to pay attention, this is the type of work students were able to get after going through a masterclass just like this. Galravid Tall added this shot to his demo reel, this incredible shot where he took that the tutorial that we did on how I created that Dune masterclass. He took it, he adapted it, he pushed it further, he added the artistic techniques we're going to talk about today, like depth and motion. So yeah, we'll get into how, like the secret sauce on how you can actually make something like this, because again, we're holding nothing back here. So using Unreal 5, we can start freelancing, making your own films, making your own projects. People have used this to make music videos for themselves and even start working on set in virtual production. So we're gonna use it to make better films and hopefully learn from a lot of my mistakes. Does that sound cool? So yeah, without further ado, let's jump in. The 3 secrets to make your own films without Hollywood budgets using Unreal Engine 5. Getting into the Godzilla level effects. So you don't need to know how to code, how to model, how to animate. We're gonna cover how to do this without the budgets using free software with Unreal 5. So these are the chapters we're gonna go through. So we're gonna go from idea to finished film and walk through my perfect filmmaking workflow. This is perfect for beginners and it's perfect for those advanced folks out there. This has really changed a lot in the last couple weeks here after going through this Godzilla project. I've changed a lot of how I work, and it's not what you think. The order is completely changed now. We'll get into that. That's going to be super fun. And I was also going to show you how we can start making animated films as beginners without being an animator yourself. I think this is huge for any people that have the passion, but you're worried about characters and animation. Like, do I have to animate Godzilla here? The answer is no. I'm going to show you some cool stuff there. And then we'll wrap it up with the shortcuts for filmmaking in Unreal Engine and our compositing breakdown. This is the step that 90% of filmmakers skip over. This is the most important step, how to upgrade your renders to that Hollywood visual effects quality. Sound cool? Well, let's jump into our first chapter, how we can go from previs to the first draft of our film. I'm also seeing some people ask, we're not giving away the project files of this, of the Godzilla project, but we're gonna go through exactly how it was built. So I'll literally list out all the resources with links and the URLs, so there's really no reason you couldn't go through this and make it yourself. So yeah, let's do it. Let's jump into how to go from idea to final film. All right, so I've heard this so many times, especially at the start here. People are saying, Josh, I'm not an animator, so how am I supposed to make animated films? And they already count themselves out at the very beginning. It's like the saddest thing ever. You're looking for excuses at the very beginning. But the good thing is that you don't need to be an animator to make animated films. And I will show you how. This is how we can make films without being an animator. So this is a brand new framework I came up with. Well, not I came up with. I took it from Pixar. We'll get into the history there. But yeah, it's totally changed. After looking at how animation studios have done this for years and years, I wanted to understand how I could make films better and faster. So one of my favorite sequences of all time is that first pod racing scene in Star Wars. You guys remember that? If you go back, like, this clip still holds up. I can still feel like the rumble of my chair, and like it felt like the entire theater just transformed. I felt like I was on the planet during this sequence, and this was one of those too where from a very early age I was like, man, I gotta figure out how they would do that. Like, it's just so cool. So if you had to make this pod racing scene inside of Unreal Engine, what would your first instinct be? How would you start making this? Most people, if you're thinking, okay, I gotta make this pod racing scene, you would get a model of the pod racers, you would throw them inside of Unreal Engine, and you would start animating their paths. You would start plotting out this racing path, and you would start animating immediately. But I'm here to tell you that this is actually a classic beginner's mistake. Even though I wanna jump right in to the animation, this is where I've lost months and years of my time. So right now, like, stay with me through this chapter. This is going to save you years. If you actually want to become a filmmaker, make your own films, do it yourself, and get better and practice week after week, then don't start by animating. This is such a beginner's trap. What you want to do instead is we don't want to make visual effect shots. We want to make sequences. Now, what's the difference between that? Films are sequences. They're not one-off visual effect shots. Like, one visual effect shot at a studio could easily take, between everyone all together involved, could take 3 to 4 months to finish one visual effect shot of that Godzilla quality. But the bottom line is we don't want to worry about the visual effects at all. At the very beginning, we want to worry about the film, about the sequence. And that sequence is not just about the visuals. It's actually the video and the sound together. So that's why we want to focus in on making sequences, not shots. We want to make films, not visual effects. We want to create our sequence before our visual effects. But this can kind of sound like a chicken and egg situation. Like, how am I supposed to make an animated film before I animate it? So I wanted to look back at how the pros do this. And I actually, over Christmas break, I read this book by Ed Catmull. He is the president of Pixar, and he's also one of the godfathers of CGI, one of the founding fathers. He wrote some of the very early CGI rendering tech himself and was part of that research group. But I looked back, and what was so fascinating about looking back at Pixar's journey is that you might be surprised to learn that their writing process and their previs process has barely changed since 1995 when Toy Story 1 came out. And when I read that, it just blew my mind in half, because I'm trying to use the latest tech, I'm trying to use the latest software, use the coolest tricks. But why is Pixar doing this really simple method for writing their Oscar award-winning stories. Like these guys are putting out Finding Nemo and Up, and Cars. Anyway, I'm blanking on the actual names. We're gonna look at Toy Story 3 today. But what they do specifically in their process is that they create something called a story reel. Now, don't worry, this isn't like, you don't have to be an illustrator to do this. We're just looking at how they do this, and then we'll show how we can imitate this process using Unreal Engine. So the key thing here is no one at Pixar reads scripts. Even though it's a movie company, no one is reading a script. And the reason why is that their story department, their screenwriter is working inside the story department, but the story department makes a story reel. They write out each shot in their sequence. They draw out a really simple illustration, and then they tie it together with video and sound. So it's not a comic strip. It's actually video and sound together. And we're gonna look at one here in just a second so you can see exactly what I'm talking about. I think it'll really help this click. But this is what we wanna do early on in our process, is we don't wanna I know it's super exciting to jump into the final animation and explosions and all this stuff, but you'll start to see that your film does not change from this early first draft to your final draft. When it comes to visual effects, you can't cinematography is not going to save a bad film, right? Like bad lighting is not going to save a bad film. So we need to actually make sure that story is good. And when Pixar is trying to bring emotion, and they're making comedies and movies about families with love and emotion, they're able to do it with just these simple drawings. So I want to take a look at Toy Story 3 just to tee this clip up really quick. It's just a minute here, but this was actually, I found this clip from Michael Arndt, the Oscar award-winning screenwriter of Toy Story 3. He has a YouTube channel. Believe it or not, you can go to his YouTube channel, Michael Arndt. He's like 30,000 subscribers. It's hilarious. But he did a 1-hour breakdown of Toy Story 3, exactly how they wrote it. It's one of the best video essays I've seen on the entire website. So go check it out after this. But we're gonna take a look at one of the clips from Toy Story 3. And just to bring you up to speed on the story itself, Toy Story 3 is about Andy going off to college and the toys being left abandoned at home. So they're at a precipice of, do we go with Andy to college, or and we find out that Andy leaves them and he wants to donate them. And then this leaves us in Toy Story 3. This is in Act 2 when the toys end up being donated at a daycare, and they're there on the first day saying, hey, this is gonna be great, guys, we're gonna get played with. Like, that's exactly what we want as toys, is to like play with kids. And it turns out everything is not as it seems. So let's roll this clip and take a look at Toy Story 3.
They're here! They're finally here! Ah, I'm gonna be played with!
Rex?
New toys.
So did you guys notice how they're able to tell that story, and you feel the emotion, you feel the terror of those kids stomping in for the first time, and then Barbie getting picked up and dipped in blue paint and smearing it on the wall, and they're able to make these funny jokes, these funny visuals without spending a week animating that shot. Like, that's what will happen down the line. But if the story doesn't work at this early stage, if the rhythm of the music isn't working, then why are we going to spend all this time doubling down on making something look better if the story doesn't work? So yeah, Dave, it's basically like storyboarding. But the good thing is that we don't need to draw if we're using Unreal. So don't worry if you're not an illustrator. It's great if you are, because this is just the best exercise ever, is to go through that storyboarding process. And basically what we're going to do is make the first draft of our previs in Unreal by taking screenshots. So this was the first pass at this Godzilla film. So the very first stage was not me animating shots, it was me screenshotting different angles of Godzilla and trying out different angles, trying out this shot, reverse shot of the plane starting to swoop in, and just assembling the train tracks in front of the train, literally just scoping out and moving around in this scene and trying to come up with interesting shots. So even though the pilot is not in the cockpit here, this is going to be our final shot. It's going to be framed up on the pilot. So there we go. It's telling the story. Then that pilot's swooping around and skirting around Godzilla here, and he's screeching at the sky. And we're able to tell that story. That's what's going on with these basic screenshots. So at a really simple, rudimentary level, we can start to tell the story. You have to use your imagination a little bit, but this way, in a day, in one day, one single work day, not 24 hours, in like 4 to 8 hours, you could actually put your first previs together. Isn't that pretty cool? Like, this was so foreign to me 8 months ago. This was not how my head was screwed on whatsoever. But it's such a basic process, and we're able to make films in a day when other people literally are spinning their wheels to get their visual effects shot finished, and they've never watched that film in its finished form. So we can do it at this basic screenshot level. So this is the framework I now use for storyboarding. So screenshot this, write it down. If you write it, it's retained. I love that. If it's written, it's retained. And I keep a notebook at my side at all times so I can just write stuff down. That's my cheat code for memorizing stuff without having to put any mental energy into it. If you just write it down, your brain magically remembers it. But to go through this, the first step is just going through your viewport and screenshotting, just like you're in a video game, just like you're in photo mode in The Last of Us or God of War. You're in photo mode, screenshotting your viewport and using that to tell a story and make a film. We're gonna add those shots into our editing timeline. So I use Premiere, but you can use literally any editing software. Totally doesn't matter. They're all the same, basically. And then we're gonna add in other stills and clips. So one other thing I did here is I also added in a couple shots from movies. So I tried not to use Godzilla movies because I wanted to actually do my own take on a movie and just kind of come up with our own own story there. But I added in a couple shots of people firing outside of a helicopter window to kind of pad out my edit as I was trying to figure out what is the story I'm trying to tell. It's supposed to be creative. You're not supposed to have all the answers when you start your previs. You want to find and discover that story as we go. So that's why this process is super, super fun. I'll show you some clips on how I did this in the next section here. So we'll show you some visuals of this in just a bit. But then we're gonna add in those stills and clips. But the most important thing is to add in your music and sound effects. Again, cinema is video and sound together. It's not just the visuals. I know as a visual effects artist, I started as a visual effects artist, as you know. I think a lot of us here are in that same boat. And it's very easy to think that, oh no, if the visuals are so good, it won't matter what the sound is. But man, bad sound will kill great visuals. And also music can totally transform how a scene feels. So music to me is the number one thing to add in and start to feel the rhythm and the pace of your scene. And then just start to continue upgrading your shots. So you can start replacing shots. And again, just to show you here, another thing I learned, it's super simple but incredibly useful, is that you can pose instead of animate. This is a huge thing here. So what do I mean by this? Let's compare two images. So if we look at this shot here of Godzilla staring down this city street, he's standing upright, he's standing stoic, he feels powerful, he's unbothered, versus this other shot of Godzilla screeching up at the sky, his body twisted, he's kind of moving around, and you can feel the momentum of him kind of swerving around or twisting around here. And even though it's a still image, they have completely different feelings. And so don't get bogged down. Don't think you have to animate here. You can tell a story with a single image. And this took way less time than animating an entire sequence. So I really hope that saves a lot of time. Let me know if that's something new, because I'm sure every one of us here has heard of storyboarding, but have you made a storyboard? Have you just done it with screenshotting your viewport? That's what we're talking about here. It really can be that easy. And what I loved is that as I'm developing this, I was starting to think like, okay, what's the perspective of this story from? The scariest perspective isn't from the pilots trying to shoot down Godzilla. The scariest perspective is from the ground, looking up at the sky. It's looking up at him about to crush you at any second. So I wanted to go back in and actually look at how can I recreate those shots of looking up at Godzilla from the street level. And if you notice here, these really do match exactly what ended up in the finished film. Even though it's just these simple shots, we can easily we can easily make some really cool shots. So we're creating a camera for every single angle. That's the way that we can do this super fast. And then we're gonna assemble our reel in our edit to tie everything together. So this is what it looks like. So from Unreal, I'm just making small modifications to our shots and then adding in simple animation just to make that first version of previs. Basically how I go from a still photo to previs is I take that camera and I start animating the camera. I'm not even gonna worry about animating our characters yet. I just wanna get the composition of the shot. So again, don't worry about character animation at the very beginning. It's such a time suck, and not to say that it's incredibly valuable, but for this early stage, that character animation is not gonna change the feeling of your sequence. That's the thing to focus in on here. So it's really easy to render out shots super fast in Unreal because it's all in real time. And then we can literally just we can put that right into Premiere and start to add in notes and add in other clips and just start to assemble our edit together. So yeah, do you guys can actually take screenshots and make your first storyboard using this method? I think, to be honest, only 25% of you are actually going to do this. Most of you are not going to do anything that I talk about here. So that's totally cool. This is for that 25%. So the filmmakers in the chat, I hope you can use this. I wish I knew this starting out. I wish I knew this 5 years ago. And I'm telling you, if you make films this way, if you made 10 films just storyboarding it, just with screenshots, you would be 10 times the filmmaker that you are today. And most people, they just never get past that first storyboard, let alone the 5th or 10th. And honestly, what I'm doing in the background behind closed doors is this process. We just finished up this film, but I'm spending most of my time now in this early stage, not worrying about the final visual effects, because this is the part that's important. It's telling a better story. It's making a better film. Does that make sense? Because if you guys can take screenshots, then we can make our first storyboard. And that to me is super, super exciting. So this is a look at the final previs. Let's take a look at the full sequence here. And you can see this very early rough stage. Yes, it is rough, but you'll see the music and the pacing. And hopefully this gives you a very clear idea of what it looks like to do this yourself and what it can look like in Unreal Engine. So there you go. That's how you can tell a story using this screenshot and simple previs method. And you can see it carries over. The same film is there at this early stage, and it reflects in the final film. So whatever you make at this early stage, you're just kind of putting makeup on it. You're making it slightly better. You're improving it, but the story is fundamentally the same. So it's really important to make that film as great as possible in the early stage. So I'm seeing a question here from Dave Kachow as well. How would you screenshot your storyboard without having your scene made yet? That is a great question, and that's exactly what we're going to talk about next. So, yeah, once your edit is, let's actually go into this next chapter here. So let's actually talk about how can we start to assemble our scene. I know that not every one of us is going to be a 3D modeler. We're not going to have that expertise as well. So I want to give you some great resources on where you can start how. The question really is, where am I supposed to get the plane models and the city models and the characters and all this stuff? And the reality is you don't need to make this yourself. There's a lot of great free and cheap resources out there. I'm going to give a lot in this next chapter, so let's go into it. Basically, we're going to start off with characters, how to get the best places to get those free character assets, and then also where to get high quality characters. And then we'll do the same for environments, and then finish this off by talking about how to finish our shots, make them look awesome, and how to go from that video game look into that final polished Hollywood visual effects. So let's start off with characters. The bottom line is you need characters to make a film. I see a lot of Unreal portfolios out there, and I'm not throwing shade here whatsoever. Like, I get why people are doing this, but there are so much Unreal Engine 5 work which are simply environments, and they're not films. People will call them films, but you're just showing off an environment, and that's totally cool. Again, not throwing shade, but it's not a film. It's not really a film if we're getting down to it. You need characters to have a film. And so a lot of people can get tripped up on this because, again, how do you get characters? Maybe you haven't modeled a 3D character yourself. You might need to rig things, and it sounds really technical, but I want to give you some resources so you can jump right into the fun part by finding some characters for free that already have animations, that already are finished, that you can populate in your scene. So the good news is that, yeah, you don't need to be a character animator or a character modeler yourself. I wanted to share for those beginners here, because I know a lot of us are at 0 projects started. If you're just starting out, the best resource that I found for free assets that you can use to start making your first film is using these assets from the Epic Games Marketplace. So these are completely free assets. What I'm about to show you here are these Paragon assets. So these are AAA video game quality characters and of totally different makes. So there's some orcs here, there's robots and cyborgs and witches and soldiers and knights. There's a little bit of everything, and every single character that you're seeing right here is completely free to download on the Epic Games Marketplace. So the same place that you download Unreal, you can go in there, go to the Marketplace tab, and just type in the word Paragon, P-A-R-A-G-O-N, and you can find all of these. There's over 50 that you can download and immediately drop into your Unreal scene, and they come with animations. They come with the ability to throw on animations right away. So you don't need to be an animator to get started. To make that first film, you do not have to be. Obviously, I'm a couple projects in. Now we're trying to get into custom animations, and I'll show you how we did that. But don't get lost here. You can start out like this, and this is how I would start. If I had to do it all over again, I would start using these assets to make that first action scene. So if you want to animate anything inside of Unreal, that's always done inside of something called Sequencer. So Sequencer is kind of like your editing timeline, but inside of Unreal. So it actually looks just like After Effects. If any of you have used After Effects in here, it's just like After Effects, but inside of Unreal. So basically, we're going to add every asset into Sequencer, and then we're going to add in keyframes. So everything you're seeing here, from Godzilla to the helicopters, all the way to the explosion lights we're seeing here. So as he swats at that helicopter, we have a light exploding and getting brighter and then darker. It's just 3 keyframes, but it's animated. So as he swats through here, that light animates on. And anything from Niagara to the characters to everything here, we're just making a couple keyframes inside a sequencer. That's all that's going on here. So I understand that this could probably be pretty intimidating for someone just starting out. You're seeing the Godzilla swatting down planes, and that's awesome. But if you're just starting out, my best piece of advice, if you want the shortcut to making that first film, I'm telling you the easiest way is to avoid human characters at the very beginning for the first project, not for your 5th or 10th project, but for that first project. I would urge you to focus on making a film with vehicles. This is the thing that's going to make it much easier, because it's easier to animate a plane than it is to animate a human. So an animation like this is 3 simple keyframes mapped out here that we're able to simply adjust, because we're not overcomplicating this. We're trying to make simple flight paths of this plane flying through the air, and that allows us to make some impressive animation without doing anything. Like, you can see exactly what's going on here. It looks complicated, but at its core, the previs, the base animation is super, super simple. And then what's so cool once you animate vehicles is that you can take your camera and you can parent it to that plane. So just like you take a GoPro and you would mount it to a plane, we can basically do the same exact thing by parenting our camera to our planes. And whether it's a plane or whether it's a car or a tank or any other vehicle, it's all the same. We could take that camera and we can move it around. We could strap it to the windshield, strap it to the cockpit. And then when it's parented, we can literally rotate the vehicle, and we can imitate exactly how you would make this in real life. Like, it starts to feel just like Dunkirk when they strap on that camera onto the side of the plane. we can start to imitate that feel by recreating the same methodology of what they would do in real life. So we always want to tie it back to think, how would they do this in real life? Where would they put the camera? How would they bolt it onto the top of the plane? And then just start to recreate that entire process live in Unreal Engine with just a couple keyframes. So we also did this for the cockpit of the plane itself. So we also rigged up all of the individual gauges and dials, so we could throw that as part of the story of having that like speed up, or the RPM sputtering out if that's what we decided, but that's all set up there. And then we even did some more point of view shots from inside of the helicopter. So again, nothing really complicated here. We just need to think of how they would do this in real life. You'd have a helicopter, you'd have someone in another seat, you'd have your soldier on the side, and then that helicopter would be flying through the air. So just like you would do in real life, we just want to think like a real life filmmaker and then reverse engineer it inside of Unreal Engine. And that's where I always go back to, if I'm ever struggling of like, what am I supposed to do here? I literally take my camera, I go to the ground plane of whatever I'm doing, and I think of what would a real life film crew do to make this shot look awesome? And then if you just ask yourself that question, you'll come up with the answers. The answers are in your head. You just aren't asking the right questions. So another great thing is that because we're in Unreal Engine, we can use the game engine systems like creating muzzle flashes, which I have a tutorial on this coming next week, which you guys will see for free on the YouTube channel. That's super exciting. We'll go all the way into how to recreate that later on. But the bottom line, the punchline here is the easiest way to start animating is to start with vehicles. Start with cars, start with tanks, start with planes, start with helicopters. And you can get all these assets either from the Epic Games Marketplace or from my other favorite resources there are either artstation.com is a great one for really cheap, high quality assets that some of you may not know of, but that's a really good one. And also CG Trader is a really good dollar for value on assets, I find. And that could also be spaceships. Like, don't just limit. It could be pod racing. It could be anything you want. Like, we don't need to tell small stories with vehicles. It doesn't have to be a bike. It can be, any sort of vehicle out there. It could be a spaceship, chase scene. Spaceship chase scene. That's hard to say. But yeah, because we're all starting with vehicles. So next, let's move on to how we animated Godzilla, just to show you. I know some of you are a bit more advanced. You're trying to think of how can I go to that next level? What would it look like to make custom character animation and literally design Godzilla swatting through the streets of Hong Kong here? So as you can see, I am not a character animator. So I am a compositor first and foremost. I think this is super underrated. Some of you might roll your eyes at this, but I guarantee you haven't done what I'm about to tell you. Is collaborate with other people. And I know as soon as I say that, everyone's like, oh, sure, like I can DM people and no one responds to me. Well, dude, sell your project a little bit. Make it interesting. Send a screenshot. Send the script. Send it in the first message. Make your project interesting to other people. Because I swear, senior level artists at visual effects studios today will work on a super fun passion project. I'm telling you, it just has to be the right thing. At this point, obviously we're paying artists because we're doing it with Unreal for VFX. But the bottom line is any one of us out here, you just reach across the aisle, reach out to someone on LinkedIn or Twitter or Instagram or anything and start collaborating with other animators. Because John also is not great at compositing or lighting and effects. So we get the best of both worlds. But honing in on how we actually were able to do this in Unreal Engine is we didn't animate it in Maya or Blender and bring it in. We animated everything inside of Unreal Engine using Control Rig. So Control Rig is something specific to Unreal that we built. I also messaged a rigging artist. Instead of doing it myself, we were in a time crunch. So instead of learning a brand new skill set, which could take a week or two to do, you can just find someone that's done it and they can take one day to do the thing you need to do. It's a magical concept, right? But yeah, that's how you could do it. And just with 2 or 3 people, again, this is a crew of 3 people. There were 2 other souls putting and working their magic on this, but that's all it took was using Control Rig, and we were able to edit everything right here in Engine. And when you're animating and lighting at the same time, you really get a great sense of your finished film right at the end. So we got John up and running in just a single day. John also has a YouTube channel at Watch Me Animate. Super awesome videos over there that walks through how to go from a beginner animator to someone like him who works at Method Studios and works at some really cool game studios now. But yeah, he learned everything he needed to with Unreal in a single day, and we got up and running so that he could crush through all the animation. And his portion of it, he was able to animate all these shots in just over a week. So it took him like a week and 2 days, I believe, to kind of get through everything. But yeah, he was able to animate everything in Unreal Engine, and then I went on to build the environments and effects around it. So we're able to get the best of both worlds. But through this, we can still pose in Engine, and we obviously can animate in Engine. But then we found the model of Godzilla off of Turbo Squid. So any of you could literally go to Turbo Squid and find this. It's the first one. If you just type in Godzilla, like, it's not crazy. Just go over there and check it out. It already comes with a rig, so you can get started over there. Not a control rig, but a rig, so you don't have to rig anything yourself outside of control rig. But yeah, that is how we put that together, and we're able to assemble everything inside of Unreal. But that's a look at character and vehicle animation. And as you can tell, character animation gets complex pretty quick. So if you're just starting out, do yourself a favor. Don't use characters, don't use metahumans, don't animate someone's face for your first film. I'm just telling, like, I want to save you time. I'm trying to help with this advice. Don't do that. Start with vehicles. That's going to be the best way to actually finish that first film, instead of it being one of those projects that you start and it ends up on the shelf, and 8 weeks later you look back, you're like, I'm like halfway done and I'm probably not going to finish that. We don't want to do that. We want to finish what we start. And if you want to do that, just use vehicles in your animations. So I hope you came away with that chapter with some free resources: ArtStation, Turbo Squid, CG Trader, places to get some great characters, and also the Paragon assets. Again, if you're just a beginner, write that down. Don't let that slip. It's a really great resource. I wish I knew about that when I started out. I didn't, so it took me a couple extra months to learn all this stuff. But yeah, so that is our characters chapter. The next important thing is, how do we build the environment? So going back to your question, Dave, is how can we start building the scene if we don't have a city yet? So that's obviously, I think it's a great question. So when I'm starting to build environments, I don't focus on creating the 3D models myself. A lot of people tell me, well, dude, I don't know how to be I don't know how to 3D model, so I can't make an environment, right? Like, you're trying to make an entire downtown Hong Kong city, and I don't even know how to model. So how am I supposed to do that? Well, the bottom line is, I didn't model anything for this city. I'm going to show you some really cool tricks so that you don't have to waste your time doing that. And not waste your time, it's just, if you want to, it's all what's important on this project. In this project, creating custom models was not important. This was all about the filmmaking and animation. So if you want to build cinematic environments faster and easier, I want to share some of the things I learned working on Godzilla versus Kong. So this was my first experience as a lead compositor over at MPC on this show, and my job was to set the look of this downtown Hong Kong sequence. So basically, I get a bunch of regular renders with no fog, no atmosphere, and I have to somehow make it look completely photoreal. And obviously, you know, there's lots of great artists working on these movies, and they're giving us some great assets, but there's still a lot that we had to do to make this look photoreal. So let's talk about how we can actually look at creating this set and how we could create a city like this in Unreal Engine much faster. So if I was just starting out, if you don't know this already, if you've never used Unreal, Unreal comes with a bunch
created
of
in
like
the same physical
40,000
location
free assets,
using
free 3D models that are
to
identical to real life. They have a team that goes out and photo scans all of these.
My best
so
advice
typically,
here
I'm going to
is
start
to try
with
to find
Quixel
kits
Megascans,
that were
which again is
created
literally
together.
built in
If you
Unreal
find the
Engine.
packs that
You
were
just
created
literally
at the
can
same
drag
time,
and drop
when you start dragging
any
them
3D
into
asset
your
directly
scene,
into your scene.
you'll
just
notice
like
that they start to
that's the power of Quixel. But in this case, I needed buildings. I needed ones that actually resembled Hong Kong in this case. So I ended up finding this asset pack from bigmediumsmall.com. So if you actually are interested in this in particular, it's just in the description of this live stream if you want to check that out. But yeah, in this case, because I was trying to work fast and I wanted to start from pre-existing models, this was really great because they had a bunch of big assets, but also lots of things that were small, so it would look good up close. So they built out storefronts and interiors to all of these buildings, which I was just not going to have the time to do. So again, we built this in 5 weeks. So like, they spent more than 5 weeks to build that asset pack. So we were able to obviously just use that and finish it faster. I would recommend you do the same thing. That is how you're going to get through more films much faster. But the key thing here is not just to magically have someone, you know, make the models for you. That's not really a tactic for success, right? So the real thing to do is to start from reference. This is such a critical step. And again, this is something a lot of beginners will roll their eyes at. And I'm sorry, guys, you're not going to make it into the industry, because the more senior you get in the visual effects field, the more you rely on reference. Like, I don't know a single senior artist that doesn't spend a full day collecting reference when they are kicking off a project. It's that important. And in this project, I went one step further. I actually wanted to see, what does it look like in real life to actually like look and see what would it be like to be in Hong Kong and look up at Godzilla. So this is footage from my iPhone in Chinatown here in Montreal, where I live, looking up at the city and trying to see, what would this look like? How bright are the street lights? What does it look like when lights are cast onto these buildings, like this green light splashing onto this building? That was a pretty cool look, so that's why I wanted to capture it with film. And you can notice too, like, look at how bright in all the lens flares that are coming off of these street lights. Like, they're super orange and yellow, and then you look at these office buildings and those lights are really neutral and white. And very, very quickly, just by observing and studying this reference footage, we can start to get a much better idea of what we need to build here. Again, this is the basics. These are the building blocks, but if you skip over this step, it's not, your work is not going to look photoreal. I can promise you. And the hard part about photorealism is that photorealism basically equals perfection. You need it to perfectly match real life. So it can be quite hard. So you want to start with real life. You want to give yourself an easier way to do it. And that's why we start with reference. And honestly, the biggest difference between good and great artists is that good artists guess, great artists study. This is super, super important. Like a lighting study or a character study for a sculptor you're doing a practice project and comparing your work directly with the actual reference in real life. We want to study and we want to create studies to prove that we know what we're doing. So the first thing I did was pull up some high resolution photos of Hong Kong. So this is Hong Kong at night, super fogged out, looking cool. Doesn't quite look like a movie, but this is where we can start from. So it's interesting to see exactly what it looks like in real life. It's super colorful, these super bright reds. Look at all the reflections on the water. Again, we're just trying to study this. We can also see how complex this is. I mean, there's so many light sources. There's literally maybe millions, maybe not millions, there's at least thousands in this one photograph alone, and let alone throughout the entire city. But at least we can start to see what it looks like with these super bright neon lights, how bright everything is, and what it really looks like at night. And the biggest thing here is if you've been working in visual effects and you feel like you're struggling to level up your work and artistically it's not getting better, the number one thing you have to do is you need to improve your creative eye. You need to learn how to see. Now this can feel very esoteric at first and very hard to comprehend. Like, how do I learn how to see? And for me, this experience was actually on the first movie I worked on at MPC. So it was during Alien Covenant when this really hit home. So this was my very first project. I was completely self-taught on YouTube, and the first time I talked to any human being face to face about visual effects was on this show, was on Alien Covenant, talking to the visual effects crew on there. Like, I knew no one before my first job who was actually doing this. So I was totally thrown into the deep end, but it also was kind of a dream come true of landing in a visual effects studio. And the coolest part about working in a visual effects studio is any single shot in the entire movie, you can go into that shot and literally open up the script, see exactly how they made it, see all the nodes, see how it was made step by step. And what I would do, because it was my first show and I wanted my work to look like those senior artists, is I would literally go through and I would copy and paste those scripts into my own into my own shots. I would take their shots, copy all the nodes, and put them into my own shots. And it was incredibly frustrating because even if I directly copied, I tried this out on a couple shots, and my work did not look better. Just using the same nodes did not make me the same artist as these senior level compositors that were sitting next to me. And it was driving me crazy. And at a certain point I was like, dude, Emilio, get over here. He was on a coffee break. He had 5 minutes. I'm like, dude, get over here. Roast my shot. I'm going to be honest with you, dude. I copied your entire node setup and I used it on this shot. And it looks like crap. It doesn't look good yet. It still kind of looks like this amateur junior level shot. What am I doing wrong here? I used all the same nodes. And he's like, dude, Josh, you have it all backwards. What you need to do is not focus on the technical side. You need to focus on the artistic fundamentals of your shot. It has nothing to do with the nodes. It has everything to do with the artistic techniques. And the first thing he told me, he's like, where he always started his shots was you start with depth. You need to build depth into every shot you're trying to make. So let's look at what that means. Right now, I want to teach you how to see. We're going to do that by studying images. We're going to study and analyze and literally walk away from this class improving your creative eye. So stick with me. This is how we do it. We do it by focusing in, zooming in, studying, and trying to look through the tea leaves, see what we didn't see before. So when I talk about building depth, the easiest way is by building atmosphere. So by the way, this is a picture from Milford Sound. This is the exact location that they shot on for Alien Covenant, which is why this was super helpful, as I could see real life photographs and start to understand what he was talking about like in real life first. So I went back and found some footage of this, and you can see how foggy and atmospheric these mountains are. Like, look at how dark the shadows are really close to us on screen left here, and look at how bright the screen right ends up being, how lifted and how much atmosphere is between us and these distant mountains. And what you'll start to realize is that the fog basically just turns into clouds. Fog and clouds and atmosphere are all the same thing. It's just water particles in the air. That's literally what's going on here. It's just atmosphere. Clouds are atmosphere, fog is atmosphere. It's all atmosphere. And if we use that and layer it in, we can start to slice up and build shapes and silhouettes around our mountains. Like, look at how clear that shape and silhouette is, because we have a lot of distance between the midground here and that deep background in the horizon. So we have some more shots here. Another way to do this is with scale. So look at the size of these clouds here on screen left. Look at how big this cloud is here. And then look at how small the cloud is all the way in the distance. Like, it's super, super tiny. You might barely be able to see this on your viewport. So what's going on here is these clouds are actually the same exact size, but one is just much, much, much further away, much further back in depth. It's further in the background. And even though the scale of the object is exactly the same, by building depth, by putting things really close to the camera, in the midground of the camera, and in the background of your shot, we're able to create depth through atmosphere and through clouds and through all these things. And they will help us layer and just create more depth and create a more interesting looking image. So those are a couple quick techniques to add depth, is to add objects like clouds in the foreground, midground, and background, and try to create scale. To go back to that first image, we have these waterfalls that are super huge close to us, and we also have ones that are super tiny in the same image. But they're probably the same height. They're probably about 200 meters tall, whatever it is. But one's close, one's further away. So we want to do the same thing in our own images. We want to build depth, and this is how we can do it. It's by maintaining scale and building atmosphere. Those are the two gigantic takeaways that I think of every single time I'm trying to assemble a shot, is how do I create depth? How do I create atmosphere? And it's really, really easy to do this in Unreal. And you'll notice that there's a lot of similarities between that shot from War of Being and Alien Covenant, because it's all the same techniques. But the problem is, how do we apply this to downtown Hong Kong? This is like, I learned this in 2017, and then I was faced with this challenge of trying to recreate this downtown shot of Hong Kong when I can't have clouds. We literally cannot have a rain cloud storm in the middle of Hong Kong during this sequence. Really, really quick, by the way, my PowerPoint is kind of shutting down. I'm just going to reset that super fast. Let me just close this down and open it back up. I think this will all be all the happier for this. Yeah, sweet. We already got it back up. So let's jump back here, because I want to really look at the examples. The examples are what happens here, because we can't develop our creative eye if we're not seeing, if we're not looking at things differently. We can't look at things the same way we did yesterday. We have to continue to evolve and analyze and develop that creative eye. And it's a thing you'll do for the rest of your life. I feel like every time I see a new painting or a new image or a new movie, you realize all the different ways that you can layer in depth and build all these things. So here we go. Let's go back, and I want to look at some of these shots from Godzilla vs. Kong, because this was the challenge, is I cannot use cloud cards anymore in this downtown sequence. But I had to build atmosphere, and I had to build depth. So I was scratching my head at the start of this project, like, dude, what am I gonna do? Like, everything I learned, I can't use these tactics anymore. But what I realized is I can still build depth, but I don't need to use clouds to do it. I could actually fake some of the volumetric fog that we're getting from the billboards and from these neon signs inside of Nuke, but now we can do it inside of Unreal Engine. So I first learned this the slow way at the visual effects studios, but now we can apply these glow cards, which are just atmospheric, basically, we're just recreating the glow of our neon signs and placing them in our 3D scene. So what this looks like in action is it's super, like again, this is such a simple magic trick, but it completely transforms your work. We're taking this super simple, blurred out, simple texture, and we're gonna place this in our 3D scene. I'm literally taking that texture and I'm just multiplying it by a color. So we have orange, fiery glow cards underneath Godzilla's feet. I'm using a depth fade node so it literally stretches around and through all these city blocks. And then I'm gonna take the, instead of going orange everywhere, we need to add more colors to add the complexity of a real CG, of a real city, not a CG city. We want to imitate real life. So we need to change up the colors. So I added yellow sodium lights around the street, like we saw from that reference in downtown Montreal. And then I added some red and orange glow cards around the buildings that have neon lights. Added yellow ones around the brightest buildings that are close to camera. And just by building and layering these different cloud cards with different colors, very, very quickly, I was able to add in lots of atmosphere and depth in this really simple scene. So another example is just adding in a cloud card around Godzilla's feet and around these storefronts. And I even took one of these and I made it super bright and super orange and just put it right underneath his foot. So when he stomped down on the concrete, I had this glow card animate orange and it got brighter and bigger, timing it up to the impact of that explosion. And you can start to see some of the magic tricks, start to see behind the curtain a little bit on how that shot was made, is by literally just taking glow cards, some red glow cards, some yellow glow cards, and that's how we're adding in all these little bits of color into this shot. And you don't see it, you don't identify it at first, but your brain does. As an audience member, it does. And we're able to separate Godzilla from the background, from that city street, by having a ton of fog, a ton of atmosphere behind Godzilla as he lunges forward and smashes down into that concrete. But does that make sense? That's glow cards. It's a super, super nice technique, and it's a great way to add depth. And honestly, I am applying glow cards and cloud cards to every shot I do. So take with that what you want. I apply it to every single shot. There's not a single shot on my entire channel that doesn't have these. So just keep that in mind. If you want to make your stuff look a bit better, that's how you might be able to do it. So the last trick here, super important. This is such a huge lesson taken directly from visual effects studios, is we can use some of the cool old school tricks of visual effects studios to make our lives easier, to help us not 3D model every single asset in an entire city. So one thing I did here is I got one more asset pack from Kitbash 3D. So I grabbed a couple more city buildings, and that was definitely starting to help. But when I was comparing my 3D scene with these photographs, I was thinking, man, dude, I'm so far away. Like, this really does not look close to photoreal. It's not really matching the reference. So how can I get a lot closer? So the easiest way to do that is to simplify everything. And this is one of those, like, it's so basic, it's crazy you didn't think of it in the first place, is that instead of trying to build every single building in this entire city like everyone else does, what if we just took this exact photograph, literally this exact same photograph, and just placed it in the background of our shots, behind our CG buildings? That way we don't need to imitate real life. We can just make our background look exactly like real life by using a real photograph. So that's exactly what I did on most of these shots. Again, so simple, so basic once you see how it's done. But yeah, you do not need to spend all your time creating every 3D model in your shot. You can use things from asset packs, build what you know, build things in your wheelhouse, and then use photographs for everything else. And especially when it comes to the more complex, you wanna make something, you wanna build an entire city, just use photographs. Like, save yourself the headache, save yourself the time. It's gonna look better, it's gonna look more realistic, and you're gonna be able to put it together way faster. And another, to add on to that too, to use real life photos and help and use that technique to build environments faster, I also use something called decals. So instead of modeling the interiors of every single office building, I just got a bunch of pictures of office buildings, and I used something called a decal to just slap this on top of our buildings. So I didn't have to model anything. I didn't have to do anything crazy or complex. I just had to find images of interiors of these buildings, and I was able to apply a decal and just stamp this on top of any of our buildings. If you're new to Unreal, you don't know what a decal is. Some people call them decals. They're called decals. I'll die on that hill. But yeah, that's if you've ever played Call of Duty and you shoot at a wall, you can see that bullet hole leaves a mark on the wall, and that's a decal. It's a thing you can dynamically add onto any surface and just apply that texture onto a wall. So that's exactly what we're doing with these office buildings here. So do you think you could use some of those techniques to build environments faster? Now you have a couple places to get free assets. You have hopefully a couple cool techniques to use photoreal textures in your own work to speed up your workflow. And that's the huge thing here is use more photographs, use more pictures. You don't have to build everything yourself. I'm seeing too, Dave had a question. Can I ask a question? My current workflow in Blender is I plan out my animation idea, then I make and splice together my audio files in Audacity and then animate off of the sound. Is that a good workflow? I'm not familiar with Audacity, but whatever allows you to tie sound with your visuals. So if Audacity can somehow edit, I thought it was just a sound software, but as long as you can have your video and your audio timeline together, that sounds like a great workflow. But yeah, hopefully that checks the boxes. Now we know how to build environments and a couple great resources on where we can find some starter assets. So Kitbash, Big, Medium, Small, and ArtStation is also really, really great for the same exact thing. Great assets that you can find for super cheap. Atomic, thanks man. And yeah, the last chapter here is the fun stuff. This is what I've been waiting for. I love this chapter. This is getting into the Hollywood level visual effects and upgrading your renders and getting those explosions, those sparks, those elements. How can you add those into your own scenes? So I know a lot of people, when they're thinking of working with Unreal Engine, their gut reaction is, oh, my renders are gonna look like a video game. I can't do that. But the problem is, most people that are rendering out of Unreal is they're in Unreal Engine, they press render, and then they upload that directly to YouTube. But they're skipping over a critical step. And this critical step is what I spent my entire career doing at Visual Effects Studios, and that is compositing. So if you don't know what compositing is just Photoshop, but for video. But instead of working on one image, you're working on 24 images every second. So videos play at 24 frames a second. We're working on video instead of images. That's the only difference here. But by adding in compositing and by adding in these Hollywood visual effects techniques, we can avoid the video game look and we can make explosions and all this cool stuff. I started using some Niagara effects at first here, but most of the explosions and sparks were not created in Unreal. So super important thing here. The stuff that was created in Unreal were the muzzle flashes, were the guns and the sparks and those impacts. And what's super cool is just like in Call of Duty or any video game, you can build a dynamic system. So you can have it dynamically fire, and every time you see a muzzle flash, we're gonna shoot out a bullet. It's gonna impact real collisions in our 3D scene. We have all the collisions set up correctly. And so those impacts spawn dynamically. So I can be, we could be super creative with this. We can try out ideas and get instant feedback and see how quick the feedback is here. This is why it's super, super fun to make films in Unreal, guys. It's because like we can do things you can't do in other softwares. You cannot do this in Maya. I'm seeing, does Unreal have bullet physics? Yes, it does. Unreal has its own physics engine. So like you're not limited by not doing physics. You can import simulations from other softwares as well. If you're used to doing that in Blender or Maya, you can import those, but you can also simulate directly inside of Unreal, which is super, super cool. So let's go through this, but let's go through the step that 90% of visual effects artists skip, and that is compositing. So there's some old school tricks that we can apply, namely just layering our shots together. So you don't need everything to be in your final Unreal render. Let's take a look at the shot and break down all the layers. If we peel back this layer and look at the original Unreal render, you can see that this shot does kind of look like a video game. It's okay to admit, it's not a problem. It does sort of look like a video game. It's pretty dry, there's no atmosphere. I mean, there's a little bit, we added some yellow and blue cloud cards there, but you know, there's no lights, there's no lens flares, the lights don't feel particularly bright. There's a lot of things that aren't quite working here. that we could fix in compositing or just accentuate, take it to the next level, especially when it comes to rain. Rain is the big thing here that's really helping these shots feel realistic. So some of the layers here, I rendered out a separate pass of just this light coming from this helicopter. So we're seeing an Unreal render here. And then I added in this lens flare texture and I just like mapped it to the animation of the helicopter. Super simple, super basic animation, but I just matched that lens flare to the helicopter. Now that we have a lens flare, it starts to feel more photographic. It has the imperfections of a photo lens. I also added in these police lights just to add a bit more movement and just to add in more color. I love color, can't get enough of it. But then the real key thing here is not using Niagara for the rain. Most of the rain in this was made using real life stock footage and combining it with my Unreal renders using Nuke. So that is how I was able to pull off the very realistic rain here, is because it's real life footage, real life photographs of rain. That's why it looks good. And when we layer all these things together, we layer the rain and the lights, all of this starts to really sandwich together in a nice way. And then I add in my compositing template so I can get the lens dirt and some of the nice diffusion and smoking up the frame a little bit, so we get even more imperfections like the lens flares coming off the bottom at screen right. And we start to get all those imperfections of real life. And this is sort of the recipe for every single shot. It's a lot of the same thing over and over and over again. So it was really fun to build out the depth and make the most interesting image possible. But the base techniques are exactly the same. We're adding in rain, we're adding in glow cards, we added in this spark explosion underneath Godzilla's foot, and we added the breath, which is pretty cool. But at its core, it's all the same thing. So let's walk through this one last time. How to add stock footage into your own shots all you got to do is just export your camera out of Unreal. You're going to bring your renders into Nuke, and then we're going to start to create our separate layers. So what it looked like on this shot is I took my camera, brought it into Nuke. I had this spark explosion, which is the thing that goes underneath his foot. And I'm using a node called an image plane node here, which will just place that footage in 3D space. So we have our 3D camera moving around. In that shot, it's going right to left. So we have that same camera move. We're placing that stock footage in 3D space. So now we can see it moving correctly because we have the right camera, we have the footage. And then I rendered out a depth pass. And this allows me to really sandwich and stencil out all of the foreground elements by remapping those values so that everything's black in front of those buildings. And by remapping that depth pass and just combining it with stock footage, we're able to make it look like this dust cloud is literally going underneath Godzilla's, like stomping right underneath Godzilla, behind all these buildings and underneath Godzilla. That's the power of a depth pass. And that's the only fancy thing that's going on here. There's nothing more advanced than that. We're just finding different ways to get depth passes inside of Nuke, and then we're combining that with stock footage. And then the stock footage, because it's real life footage, that does a lot of the heavy lifting. So this is what that roar looked like isolated, and that's what it looks like when it's applied with all the rain, with all the smoke and effects and all that cool stuff. But is that cool? Does that give you at least a clear idea of how this is made, what the secret sauce is? It's literally just a couple extra layers all combined together. And you'll see it's the same in all these shots. It's rain, it's sparks, it's explosions, and it's the same technique every time. I'm using an image plane to put it in 3D space. And yeah, this is what it looks like. This is what we got in the Unreal viewport versus what it looks like when with the final composite. So we added in the lens flares, we added in the explosion, and this is stock footage of an explosion. This is like not CG, like I didn't simulate this. I found this footage of an explosion and then added in the lens flares, made it look, made it pop from there. But essentially that's all that's going on. It's the same technique over and over and over and over and over again. I think of visual effects a lot like music. A lot of people say that like you can play the same pop, like every pop song is the same 4 chords. And I find that visual effects is the same way. It's not like there's 60 techniques out of there. It's like 4 chords that we're gonna play over and over and over again. So yeah, I'm seeing as well, this is done inside of Nuke. Nuke is a separate software, but it's completely free for students and for personal work. They have a free license, and the only restriction is you're limited to HD, but yeah, this was rendered in HD anyway. So, you know, it's not really a limitation as far as I'm concerned. But that was the process. And then to finish everything up, the last step that I add on all my work is I throw in my one-click compositing template just to add in those last lens effects, make everything look awesome. And that's a nuke template, that's an After Effects template as well, that I just add onto every shot just to add in the lens dirt, the lens flares, the diffusion, chromatic aberration, halation, grain, that whole crazy checklist of all the stuff you got to add in, vignetting. The diffusion stuff's looking really good in here. That also does a lot of the heavy lifting to why it looks more photographic. And there's also some really nice glints and other lens effects to just polish everything up. But that is the key step. It is compositing. And that is the workflow I go through every single time. I'm adding in 3 to 4 basic elements, finding the best stock footage I can, but I'm just trying to, less is more a lot of times. Finding awesome looking footage, awesome explosions means you can do a lot less in the composite. But yeah, there we go. That is how we applied compositing to bring these shots to life and get rid of that video game stink so it actually looks like it's from the movie theater. Those are the techniques we use to make the environments. So we got decals, we got those photoreal textures so we can build environments. And then we also have that storyboarding framework so that any of us on this call right now, after this, could go out and literally make a storyboard, build out that environment, and make your first film, or at least that first draft. That was my hope for today, is that everyone at least knows those next 3 steps on where you're gonna get assets, how you can storyboard that first film, and how you can actually finish off that first draft. Because if you've made that first film, congratulations, you are a director. You just gotta finish that first film. It's a Jim Cameron quote that I love, whatever, I don't know, James Cameron. Yeah, you just need to direct one film. That's all it's gonna take. So we have the finished film here. Let's take one last look at Godzilla in Unreal 5 together. Well, we got a false alarm. We got a false alarm. That's the old one. I gotta put in the new one. Give me one sec. Let's get the right one loaded up. We got to make sure we got the latest and greatest, because yeah, there was a lot of small changes that got into that final version. So let's take a look at the final film. So. So there we go. That is Godzilla in Unreal 5. So my question for you, just to wrap this up, to make it, to really show that, hey, this is, any one of us really can do this, is, can you screenshot your viewport? Can every one of you screenshot your viewport? Because if you can do that, you can map out your first shot. You can make any one of these visual effects shots. And if you can create one shot, you can create an entire sequence. And that means you can create that first action, that first action scene. From start to finish. It starts with one shot, you build it out into a sequence, and then movies are just more sequences altogether. So I hope every one of you walked away knowing how we can actually jump into filmmaking, because man, it is so much fun in Unreal Engine. You can really build out war scenes. You can make things that are, like I said, yeah, you can make things that are stylized, all this cool stuff. But more importantly is, I would implore all of you, if you are serious about taking that next step, using Unreal Engine, or maybe one day working on set, the real next actionable step here, yes, you want to make that first film, but you also want to make that next demo reel. A demo reel is a thing that will actually get you hired. Like I said, I was a film school dropout, and funny enough, I was the only person at that particular school who's actually worked on these blockbuster films. And it's not because I'm super special or something like that. It's nothing crazy. It's literally that before everyone else was focusing on getting their degree, But the only thing I was focusing on was building that first demo reel. It is super, super important, and that is the thing that's going to get you hired at these visual effects studios. So that was the thing that ultimately got me the job on Avatar. But if you were interested in going down these career paths in filmmaking, in previs, I mean, there's so many different ways, virtual production, then it's the same exact skill set. My goal here really is these are all the skills that will help land that first job. So you guys think you can make better visual effects in films? Hopefully that's a yes. But how many of you are a little bit overwhelmed? It's totally okay. I know some of you said this is your very first, or you've made 0 projects inside of Unreal. So last time we did this, someone made a comment, and it was kind of funny, but I understood where he was coming from. He said he felt like he needed a tutorial for the tutorial, which I totally get, because there's quite a bit at the very beginning. But the best part is you only have to learn it once, and you never have to learn it again. With render times, you're waiting hours and hours for renders every single time that you need to make your visual effects in films. But when you learn real time, you eliminate rendering forever. You get to actually make films in real time, but you got to learn it first. That is that's the trade-off. So the question has to be asked: can a complete beginner really learn Unreal Engine 5? Well, to me, the answer has now become a more obvious yes, and that's why I made Unreal Fundamentals in the first place and started working with people just like Jonas. I say Zalushi in my head every time, but his name is Jonas. He actually went through this, and he was able to make his own Star Wars films inside of Unreal. So he's not just recreating. We don't have like a Star Wars tutorial. We're teaching the way to actually make films, so you can bring your own ideas to life. He said that he knew next to nothing about Unreal Engine 5 when he was starting out, but that he's gained the skills to build scenes and render cinematics from scratch. So yeah, this was one, you can see it over on his YouTube channel. It's at Zalushi, which is pretty sweet. He's built out some really cool ones, and he's getting experimental with it, but he's able to add animations and films and upload them directly to YouTube. But yeah, when I was first talking to him, the one thing that he said, and a lot of people say when they're starting off, is they try to learn on YouTube. And I started off trying to learn on YouTube too. But it's great because anyone can make videos, but it also is a problem because anyone can make videos. And a lot of times you're learning game development from people who have never worked on a published game, or in filmmaking, you're learning how to make a film from someone who's never finished an actual film. And the challenging part is to go from idea all the way to final film. So that was my biggest challenge with YouTube, and Jonas's as well. He was telling me that you need to learn, that he was stuck trying to learn all the new features, and that's what you can find on YouTube. But to level up and to actually learn the skill of filmmaking, you need to learn the workflows, not the features. Anyone can learn one-off features. You can learn about Lumen or Nanite or one-off things. But you need to learn how it all flows together, how it's going to funnel into making a film in the first place. So the biggest reason that I see a lot of artists fail is really just because of the incorrect expectations. Funny enough, and I suffered from this too. I thought it would be super easy, where you learn a lot really quick. But what happened is, after I made my first project, I ended up more confused than I started. So, and this is because maybe you followed along with some click-by-click tutorial, there's the castle environment tutorials out there, and they're great. You do learn a lot through doing those, but everyone ends up with the same exact demo reel. And if you want to get hired at a studio, you need a reel that stands out from everyone else. You can't have the same reel as everyone else. So a lot of people, they go through that, they make that first piece, but when they go to make that next film, that next visual effects shot, they go to make that demo reel, they realize that they didn't really learn how the system works together. They just learned how to copy this one environment. And that's where a lot of people struggle with, and it's not clear how to get out of this pit. I was stuck here for a long time and actually gave up the first time I learned Unreal at this point. And the reason why is I was trying to apply my VFX pipeline to Unreal Engine first, but it wasn't until I started to understand the game dev side of Unreal that everything clicked. And don't worry if you're not a game developer, because you don't need to publish a game like Skyrim or Call of Duty to know how Unreal Engine works for game dev. But we need to learn it first. You could do this by just making a basic Pac-Man-like game, but we have to do it first. And then afterwards, everything becomes incredibly easy and fast. So the biggest reason most people fail is because they're not embracing the game engine side of Unreal first. We want to use this for filmmaking. We don't want to spend 5 months making games to get started. That's the other side of things too. And that's why it can be really hard to decipher how to take that first step and get comfortable inside of Unreal. And why it can be difficult is there's a lot of small individual things that you need to learn in order to make films in Unreal. And each one of these is not difficult to learn at all. And many beginners, people that are ages like 11 and 12 are able to learn and make games and films in Unreal because the individual aspects are not difficult. The hard part is stringing them all together. So I call this the skill bridge just to make this obvious for everyone. The real problem is if you don't know things like materials or lighting or rendering or compositing, you're not able to cross the bridge. If you don't have all of these skills, you can't complete your film. You can't complete shots and you can't complete films. So you have to know all of those skills to cross. This is kind of where I found myself getting prepped for Avatar: The Last Airbender is when I got that call to get started on Avatar, they basically asked me like, hey dude, I was a compositing supervisor at the time over at MPC, and they're like, hey, do you know Unreal? We have this opportunity coming out. And I was like, dude, of course I know Unreal. I'm great at Unreal. And meanwhile, I watched a couple of tutorials. I was in the Valley of Despair, giving up. And at that point, I was like, okay, I'm gonna say yes to this job, but I'm not gonna show up unprepared. That is not the way I roll. So at that point, I literally said, I need to stop everything I'm doing. I need to go all in. And I quit my job right then. I went all in for 2 months, 12-hour days, trying to decipher this whole, trying to decipher it and reading through the documentation and making my own self-projects and all this stuff, the classic self-teaching workflow, trying to string it all together. But what was so crazy is that when I showed up on set, after that first week, I learned more in that first week being side by side with the Pixamundo crew and with the folks that have done this themselves on set. I learned more in that first week than 2 months of trying to crunch and cram and understand everything with no context. So what I wanted to do with Unreal Fundamentals was fix that and basically recreate that experience I had on Avatar and really help you bridge the gap and help understand game dev and visual effects together without taking a ton of time and without taking 2 months or 2 years to learn all this stuff. So we want to teach you the whole skill bridge, but we don't want to take all that time. So the way that we want to do that to unlock real-time rendering forever is spending 30 minutes a day. So my question for you is, do you have 30 minutes a day that you could spend starting to learn filmmaking in Unreal Engine and bring your ideas to life and start learning that skill set to start your own freelance work or potentially start working on set? Again, it's the same workflow. It all streams into the same exact thing. The things you use on set in virtual production are the same things you use when you make your first film. And that's what actually is so cool about it. So I want to help you make that first film. I want to help you make that first demo reel, most importantly, so you actually get that job. We can focus on what's most important because I've seen how big of a difference it can make in your life. Like, this stuff is real, guys. That's why I get passionate about it. That's why I get excited, because this stuff changed my life, and I would love to take a very small part in changing one of your lives too. So if you're interested in taking that next step and getting the shortcut to learning Unreal Engine, learning filmmaking in a super amount of time without all the mistakes that I made, without spending the 2 to 3 years that it took me to get to this point and understand exactly what it takes in the most efficient way to make films like this Godzilla one, so that we can master Unreal for filmmaking once and for all. Do it once, do it forever, and then you have a skill for life. I obviously can't do this with everyone one-on-one, although I would love to. I'm trying to figure out ways to do more of that, where I could do some more one-on-one coaching. But instead of that, we put together the super awesome bundle that is only going for this weekend. We'll get through everything in this, but this is Unreal Fundamentals. And the whole goal here was to give a training series that teaches you everything you need to know, but also solves every possible roadblock, question, any problem you might have down the road once and for all. Literally solve the problem of Unreal filmmaking. That's what I set out to do with Unreal Fundamentals. So if you want to create your own films, you can learn from real life production case studies from the films that I've made in the past. And together we're gonna build environments and animations together step by step. So we recreate environments from movies together, like from Raya and the Last Dragon and from The Dark Knight, which is one of my favorite movies out there. We can actually start building this step by step and start to learn the on-set filmmaking techniques and how we can recreate those inside of Unreal Engine, complete with animations and characters and vehicles. Everything that we talked about today, we dive in deep on. This was my goal, to just make the one best resource once and for all, so that you can go from a beginner to Unreal filmmaker in just 21 days. We want it to be fast. We want it to be fun. We want this to actually be simple. There's many complicated ways to learn Unreal. There's not a fun and easy one. So that's really what I set out to do over a year ago is when we started this, and we've continued to update this over the year to give you the best, the greatest project files, to give you assets, to give you everything you need to learn Unreal filmmaking once and for all. And so far, we've been able to help out a bunch of great people. We've had over 500 students who've gone through, most of them knowing nothing about CGI, knowing nothing about 3D, and the other half of them, they know Maya, they know Blender, they know 3D, but they don't know Unreal Engine, and they don't want to waste their time trying to learn all this stuff and wading through all the tutorials. So we've had people like James Henry, who's a producer, who's not a 3D artist. We've had people like Mark Jason, who is a music producer and definitely not a 3D artist whatsoever. He wanted to make his own music videos at the beginning and failed learning Unreal when he reached out to me. He said he literally thought he could never learn it. But after 3 weeks of working together, building environments, showing him the ropes, he said that he was able to understand everything that he never thought he'd be able to understand anything in Unreal, but now he can make a decent environment. So that was pretty cool. The point here is that we try to make this work at every skill level. It's designed for the advanced folks who don't know Unreal, and it's for the complete beginners who want to dive in, who want to do this quick. And we'll teach you how to make action scenes, how to download environments for free, where to get those characters for free, and we'll jump into the fun filmmaking side of it. Like, it's this, but it's 18 hours. So I had two choices. I could either do the quick version, again, doing like a 3 or 4 hour quick $30 course, or I could just fix this problem once and for all. And I could actually make the thing I always wanted when I was starting out, which is lay out the whole roadmap from start to finish, take me from a beginner to that finished film. That's what I wanted, and it just literally didn't exist at the beginning. So in order to do that, we had to make a lot more to solve all those problems. It got a lot more difficult than I thought it'd be, but I think we finally cracked it, and we made it so anyone can learn this. So starting off here, normally Unreal Fundamentals, you can get that for $597 on our site. But today, we're doing a special promo for $497, and we're gonna throw in some really awesome bonuses. So I wanna over-deliver. We got some amazing project files, and I'm even gonna throw in a complete course for free at the end of this. But if at any point, if you know you're interested, you're saying right now, dude, sign me up, this sounds awesome, I wanna make films in Unreal, the place to go is going to be unrealforvfx.com/go. So I think this is on the screen right now. Unrealforvfx.com/go is gonna be the URL where you can get everything. I'm gonna lay out the whole bundle, but I wanna make sure you have that URL. So you're not just gonna get Unreal Fundamentals. We got some really cool stuff I wanna over-deliver for you guys. So like I said, we have a lot of skills, a lot of small things, but they add up very, very quickly. So I wanted to make this super easy so anyone could blast through all these, what some people can refer to as like sticking points, because they're not sure how they all bridge together. So I wanted to make a bunch of cool free resources to make filmmaking in Unreal easier. Not to make it more difficult, not to load you on with more things to do. I wanna have you do less. I wanna make it easier. So these are a bunch of templates and cheat sheets that are gonna save a bunch of time, save a bunch of headaches, along the way. So let's start off with our lightning fast render presets that you can see right here. So a huge thing that you'll notice, and the problem every time that we face with the other 3D softwares, is the pixelated screen of death. The thing is, in Unreal, we want to render lightning fast. We can see our viewport in real time, so we want to make sure that we can render in real time as well. So I went through, I did all of the math. I found that, like, mathematically, the best, most precise, what am I trying to say here? I found the most accurate, fastest render presets out there. I did the math. I literally mapped out the whole spreadsheet and did the render test to find the fastest, highest quality render presets that ever exist. There is a right answer. We have the right answers right here in the lightning fast render presets. And I update this as I learn new things on these projects. So I made that Dune project 2 months ago. I learned a lot about motion blur, mapping out the ornithopter wings. And I'm not gonna just keep that secret to myself. We updated the render preset, so now you have a high quality motion blur preset that is the one I used for the Godzilla film as well. And that's just one of the cool bonuses. The other cool bonus is that one-click compositing template. So we'll throw that into completely for free. So this is the exact template I use. There is no difference between the one I use on my own work, the one I use on Godzilla, and the one you will get if you want to sign up. It's the same exact one where you can get the Hollywood visual effects look. We will recreate all those lens effects that I'm creating every time on Hollywood films, and you can apply them directly on your work. So if you use After Effects, we have an After Effects version. And if you want to learn Nuke, you want to be VFX Studio ready, we have a Nuke version that anyone can use. But whether you use either software, it's the same exact thing. We remapped it for After Effects, so you can use that one-click template for either of those softwares. And then for the technical side of Unreal, we don't want that to be challenging. We don't want that to get in the way. So we made 2 awesome cheat sheets, one for materials and one for blueprints, to get rid of all of the confusion and give you the cheat sheets, all of the best nodes that I use every day, and some quick pointers on how to use them so that you can copy and paste these into your own scenes, use the best workflows, use the best materials without having to study this stuff for 2 years, without having to become an expert overnight. We'll show you the stuff that matters the most and make it super easy. That's for materials and for blueprints. We have a 60-page PDF breaking down blueprints, making it easy, blueprints for beginners. We have a whole blueprints chapter, all this stuff, just to make it super, super simple. Because blueprints, people think that they need to be complicated or they're used for games, but we actually use blueprints to make stock footage, to take these sparks like I did on War of Being, and literally, this is just a blueprint here. It's a quick gizmo that we can use to make filmmaking friendly tools. And that's what we want to focus on, is not how to use blueprints for game engines, but how can we use it to make better films. We're missing one critical skill here, and that is filmmaking. We need to make sure we're putting that focus on filmmaking. We spend the first 10 chapters teaching you the fundamentals of Unreal, but then we pour into filmmaking. We use War of Being as a production case study. We show off how we made this film, the motion capture workflow, everything that went into this, from the production, from the cameras, and we build our own lightsaber battle from scratch. So we'll walk through this step by step, and we'll show you how to make your own lightsaber battle, literally this exact shot, with free characters, free animations, using Quixel, using all the free assets we talked about today, to bring this to life and actually make that first action scene. Not just talking about it from the sidelines, but creating your own fight choreography without being an animator yourself. This is one of my favorite things in Unreal Fundamentals. And we've got some really cool student reels from the work that's come out of it. And you'll notice that when I show off all the student projects here, none of these match one-to-one with what we taught in Unreal Fundamentals. People are able to learn filmmaking in the 3 weeks that it takes to go through Unreal Fundamentals. It's just 30 minutes a day for 3 weeks. You'll go through the training, and then on that 4th week, these are the projects that students were able to make. So Jay Lee and Zalushi were able to take what they learned and apply it on these next projects that have that Hollywood level look. They're recreating movies. They're trying to do what we talked about today, studying, referencing, comparing their work with Hollywood movies. But by doing that, they were able to match that look. So that is Unreal Fundamentals. Not only is that the video course, that's literally 95 different video lessons, all combined, teaching you everything you need to know, along with all these awesome bonuses, the render presets, the one-click template, the blueprints for beginners, the materials cheat sheet. We have some other awesome bonuses like the Unreal glossary and the beginner's hotkeys that you'll find in there. I don't want to get too bogged down with all the stuff because we loaded it up. We got a really awesome bonus section in there, and this is all going on sale for the next weekend, up until Sunday night at midnight. So this is gonna give you the complete roadmap. It's everything you need to know and all of the templates to solve all of the problems along the way. It'll solve rendering, it'll solve compositing, it'll solve materials, it'll solve blueprints. We solve Niagara for you, we solve it all. We really are trying to give you the entire skill set in just 21 days. We'll do it efficient, we'll do it fast, and we'll keep it fun the entire time. So that is everything inside of Unreal Fundamentals. But I promised we would over-deliver. We have even more cool bonuses that goes well beyond this. So I want to help you build your demo reel fast. And the best way to do that is to help you make your first film. So how can we do that? With vehicles. So we can make our first action scene together using vehicles by using this exact plane model we have here. So the British Bulldog that you're seeing here, we rigged it, we made it animatable, it's animation ready, so you can drag and drop this into your scenes and literally create a dogfight in Unreal Engine as one of your first projects. So this is exactly what we walk through in chapter 12. We walk through how to make a plane battle, how to add muzzle flashes and explosions and sparks, and have these planes fly and animate together step by step so you can tell your own stories with vehicles. But this lays out everything from cameras to animation to everything you need to build out a plane battle just like this. And the interior is fully rigged so you can add animation to the gauges and the dials and the rudders. It's all animatable. We made it so it's super fun and easy to use. So that alone, we had to pay artists to model it, to make the materials, to rig it, to do all of this. That alone would be $499 just to get this model together. You don't have to pay for any extra assets. We're gonna throw it in completely for free along with the project files. But we're not done there. I also want to throw in one of my favorite project files I've ever made, and that is the Dune project file. If you saw the Dune in 24 Hours Masterclass or that video on YouTube, would you want to download that project file? Would you want to open that up and see exactly how I build these types of environments? And even better than that, what if you could also get started with your own ornithopter that's animation ready, so you could literally do the thing that I did with Godzilla, but make it with Dune instead, with these project files, with these assets. Well, that's exactly what you'll get if you want to sign up for Unreal Fundamentals, is you will give you the Dune project file, everything you're seeing here from start to finish. You'll get everything that you're seeing in this project file. You'll get the assets, you'll get the mountains, you'll get the ornithopter, all animation ready, and you'll get the animated sequence that I made inside of it, so you can see exactly how it was built. So we'll throw that in along with everything else. I did have to pay the dude to actually get the rights for that ornithopter model and take that off of TurboSquid so that we could just give it to our students only. That cost a couple grand just to make sure we have the full rights to that. And you can see exactly how I would build an environment just like this. You can get it right now, today, and jump right into this project file if you want to get started. The last thing is that we're gonna throw in a complete extra course for free. So I want you guys to be VFX Studio ready. And that means that you need to learn Nuke. That is the software that's behind every single blockbuster. It's not After Effects, it's not Fusion, it's nothing like that. It is Nuke. But I did take a poll, and over 90% of VFX artists literally told me that they didn't know how to use Nuke. It was like over 600 people from the YouTube channel. Most people didn't know this, and this shocked me. I thought it would be closer to 50-50, but it turns out only 10% of people know this, which means that only 10% of people are even capable of working at a visual effects studio, because they're not gonna hire you if you don't know Nuke. It's just the bottom line. So if you want to learn how visual effects studios are making their visual effects, how to composite your shots like a pro and use the workflows that go on at Weta and ILM and all these other studios, then that's exactly why I made the Unreal to Nuke Masterclass. It's to teach you compositing and teach you everything I've learned in a single day of training. This is 6 hours that's action-packed, and we go through and recreate this shot. We composite this shot from my Mr. Freeze short film, which is coming out later too. We walk through this, you get the project files, we'll open it up in Nuke together, we'll learn everything from start to finish, and you'll end by compositing this shot like a pro. So we go through, we add stock footage, we add elements, that image plane we talked about earlier, we go through all of that. We break down the whole process so that you can do exactly what I do on every single shot. And if you haven't noticed, I'm just giving the best secrets away because we don't have time to dilly-dally around some of these. Like, again, it's 4 major chords. You just need to learn the techniques and start practicing them right away. That's what's gonna help you out the best. And if you do that, you'll have the skill set to be studio ready. The other side of this too that we cover in the Unreal to Nuke Masterclass is we cover how to handle green screens, how to take live action actors on a green screen and combine them with Unreal renders. So we go through this, we basically track our camera in Unreal, we track our camera in Nuke, we bring it into Unreal, and then we render out our background and then round trip it so we get a final polished shot that is, we're working in the best way possible, the fastest way possible, and taking those green screen shots all the way to a finished render. So we break down that whole process. We literally create this, we use this as the example in the course, so you can download that footage, you can follow along step by step and do it with me. But yeah, this is the secret, and the hard part here is we need to make our work stand out. We need to put our work ahead of everyone else, and to me, the easiest way to do that is compositing. Most people just don't do this. They just don't know about it, or they just don't care. And if you care, if you want to put your work ahead of everyone else, this is where you want to focus. It's compositing. It's that last 10% that does 90% of the work too. These are the secrets to create cinematic renders, and we've had some really cool people go through this training already. We had Howard Gersh, who was there for the first version of this. He's actually an ex-ILM artist, so he worked at Industrial Light and Magic, literally worked on Star Wars Episode 3. He went through the training, and he said he used Nuke in production, but his shots would have truly benefited from all the cool nuggets he learned in this masterclass. So that was really cool to me to know I could even teach people at ILM new tricks, because man, that's what's the point? We want to teach the best out here. We also had Jean Denis, who was a complete beginner. He knew nothing about Nuke. He only knew Unreal Engine, but he was able to come out of it knowing how to composite his shots, and now he uses Nuke for his entire workflow. So yeah, this is the same stuff I've used on Godzilla and on all these other projects. This is the Unreal to Nuke Masterclass. And the cool part is we're gonna give you this completely for free if you wanna sign up today. So normally, like I said, this is totally its own separate product, but I'm gonna throw this in just so you get the ultimate filmmaking bundle today. Get everything that you ever wanted, and we'll just solve all these problems. Like, let's just get it done. Let's take care of it today. That is the Unreal to Nuke Masterclass, completely free. And lastly, if you've ever wanted feedback on your work, if you've ever wanted that helping hand to help you through the technical roadblocks, help you through the troubleshooting, we have a private Discord, which is just for students of Unreal Fundamentals. It's filmmakers, it's visual effects artists. So if you ever wanted to crew up, or you just want a helping hand when troubleshooting your own work, or you want feedback from me, we do feedback sessions every Wednesday for Work in Progress Wednesdays. If you want to do that, the best place to do that is in the Discord. Most people charge extra stuff if they want to have their work reviewed by someone, if they want to have resources for this, but we're throwing this in completely for free on top of everything else you're seeing today. So this is the ultimate Unreal filmmaking toolkit. I wanted to solve all the problems that you might have along the way, leave no stone unturned as we do it. So if you want to get started, the best place to do that is going to be unrealforvfx.com/go. That's where you can sign up today, and you'll get access to Unreal Fundamentals, Unreal to Nuke Masterclass, the Dune project files, the Discord, and everything we talked about today. So if you want to check that out, unrealforvfx.com/go is the place to check that out. It's not going to cost that crazy amount. That's, I was a film school dropout. I don't want this to be expensive. I don't want this to cost thousands of dollars. I want this to be approachable for everyone. So if you want to sign up, you get started for just $4.97 or for just 99 bucks. So one or the other. We have a payment plan for 99 bucks. Or total for $4.97 to get everything you're seeing today. To get Unreal Fundamentals, to get the demo reel chapter, to get the biplane, to get the Dune project files, to get the Unreal to Nuke Masterclass. I want to make it easy. I want to solve all these problems that you're going to have if you want to take Unreal filmmaking and working at studios seriously. This is the best I have. This is everything I've created. This is my brain downloaded onto a website for you guys to access. So if you want to check that out, it's unrealforvfx.com/go. And if you can see here, we also have a payment plan. So you can get started for just 99 bucks if that's gonna work better for you. I understand not everyone just has that available. Some of you guys are probably students. You're trying to make that next move. Totally get that. So you can also get started for just 99 bucks through the payment plan. And we have a 30-day money back guarantee. So we just really do want it to be a no-brainer. If in 29 days you find out, hey, this is not for me, it didn't work out, just send us an email and you'll get a full refund, and you can keep all the bonus materials with it. So we just want to give you the opportunity. If you've ever been on the outside, I know that at the beginning I just wish there was the training that could take me from knowing nothing to actually making those films. It took me 3 years to get to this point. It took a lot of sacrifice, lots of trial and error, paying lots of artists for projects that never saw the light of day. So much that went into this, but you can get all the answers, all this best stuff over at unrealforvfx.com/go. And the cool part is this eliminates camera gear. Now you can practice filmmaking without renting lenses, without buying another camera, nothing like that. You can eliminate rendering from your entire workflow, so you no longer need to wait around for those Blender or Maya renders. You can get real-time feedback on your films. And ultimately, to me, it's just about practicing filmmaking for free. I don't need to pay for a crew just to practice that next film. I can make storyboards. I can make films from start to finish and develop as a filmmaker, becoming a better filmmaker. So the question is, will this really work for you? I know a lot of people ask, what computer do I need for this? So the quick answer I give on that is if you have a gaming PC or a gaming laptop, then you can run Unreal Engine 5. That's really the bottom line. It is a game engine. It's designed to work on lower end graphics cards. And obviously, the more advanced you get, eventually you can upgrade your workstation. You can get better graphics cards and all this stuff, but you don't have to have a 3090 to get started. You can get started with what you have. You can get started with a 1080 Ti or probably what you have. Or if you have a Mac, if you have a gaming PC or a Mac, you're in the perfect place to get started. It doesn't have to be any more complicated, and all this stuff runs on that hardware. And I know a lot of people, they tell me that they're not technical, they don't know how to program, and we're learning a game engine. Am I really gonna be able to learn this? But yeah, at this point, we've had so many beginners who we basically skirt you through the basics of game dev first. It takes like 30 minutes to go through that first chapter, and then we spend the rest of it focusing on filmmaking. This is not a technical exercise. This is all about the fun aspects of recreating on-set filmmaking inside of Unreal Engine. So yeah, we'll just take one last look at our student reel here, and then I'd love to answer some questions if you guys got any. What's the end date for the sale? We're closing this down on Sunday night. So yeah, this is gonna close down. This video is gonna go offline, and everything's going to go off on Sunday night to Doc Vicious. That is when this will go down. So yeah, we're not going to have the bundle. There's not going to be a way to get the Unreal to Nuke Masterclass for free going forward after this. So we just want to give you this now when you're here live over this weekend, if you want to take that next step and if you want the shortcut. And I get it too. This is not for everyone. This is really just for those of you out there who want that shortcut, who want the fast route, who want to just solve this problem in 2 to 3 weeks instead of those 2 to 3 years that it took me. So yeah, super cool to see all of the different shots that have now come out of the student reel. But yeah, we have some student stories. Louis Cha, he started out as a complete beginner too. And he said he was able to get up and running in just 3 weeks. And when he says a complete beginner, he never used Blender, he never used Maya, but he's able to follow along and actually start making films. We also had a filmmaker, Felipe Fenner, who was a filmmaker first, not a 3D artist. But he says now he can work faster and more focused as a director and using 3D. And lastly, we have Jay Lee here, who said this was easily the best Unreal 5 course out there, that he recommended to his friends in a heartbeat, which was super nice. He was the one who made those Blade Runner shots at the end of the training. So on week 4, he was blowing my mind, but he was super passionate. He saw what he needed to do. He was not going to get fancy. He followed exactly what I said. When I tell you, recreate shots from your favorite movies. So he did that and he went through, and now he has this really awesome piece that he can send out to studios and use on his demo reel. That's the other really cool side of this. So it made some really great work. And then also we've had people in studios like Tom Davis. Tom Davis is a character animator over at Sony ImageWorks. And he said it was easy to understand compared to other courses. So yeah, we've had beginners, we've had people that are years into their career, decades in, who have learned new things for the first time when following along. So yeah, we've had so many people go through it. Would really love to work one-on-one with y'all and invite you into the Discord and into Unreal Fundamentals. So that is everything that you're gonna get. And if you wanna sign up, that's at unrealforvfx.com/go. That's gonna be the link for everything you're seeing here. And yeah, it might be cool just to also show you what it looks like inside the portal really quick, just to so you can see what it looks like when you sign up and what's on the other side. Just if anyone's on the fence, I totally get it. There's lots of the online course things online, so totally get any sort of skepticism. But yeah, ultimately, I'm trying to do this right. I'm trying to do it once and for all. And I think we really did it. I'm super excited about what we built, and yeah, always excited to share it. So I'm gonna just walk through what it looks like if you go through the training yourself and what it will look like when you sign up here. So just give me 1 second. This is what it looks like in the back end. Is you'll get Unreal Fundamentals and you'll get the Unreal to Nuke Masterclass. And then this way, you can jump right into the training here. And you'll see this is Unreal Fundamentals. This is our full portal. We got 12 different chapters, over 90 different lessons that are, you can see they're pretty short as well. We keep them bite-sized so they're easy to watch. They're not super dense. They're dense but short. So they're easy to rewatch. And so you learn the right answer once and you can do it over and over again. And yeah, so we go through characters, we go through animation, we got our materials cheat sheet, we got some, there. We have our lighting framework, which is super fun, how to light your shots like Hollywood movies. We go through Niagara, and then we also go through our dogfight chapter. So this is definitely my favorite. This is chapter 12, how to create your first plane battle in Unreal Engine, and we model it off of Dunkirk. So again, I think it's the best advice out there. Recreate your favorite movies. We'll show you how to make films just like this from start to finish, all inside of Unreal, and give you the full project file, all the assets you need. And then all of the bonuses that we're talking about here are available at the bottom. So the one-click compositing template, we have our lightning fast render presets there, the glossary, the beginner's cheat sheet, the access to the Discord, all this stuff. We try to make it super easy, and everything in this course is searchable. So this is designed as a resource so that if you had a question, the next thing a lot of people say is like, oh shit, that's a lot of lessons. How am I gonna troubleshoot if I have an issue? The way we can do that is through our search engine. So a one that I use all the time is if you want to enable path tracing, you want to crank up the render settings on your render. You might want to look for that, but you don't want to search through the entire video library. So instead of doing it manually, we built this search engine so you can go through the chapters. You can see which thumbnail. So this is our path tracing chapter, and we can see that okay, at this time code it says this is how I can enable path tracing in our scene. So if I click on this button here, I can actually look and see, I'll jump directly to that time code. So I have the exact answer on how to enable path tracing right here. So we built this out, again, just trying to solve every possible problem along the way. I know how frustrating it was at the beginning. I don't want anyone to go through that. It was super frustrating and not beginner friendly to go through this on your own. And another cool thing about the search engine, if you want to search things like volumetric fog, want to see what's out there, how we cover it, you can see obviously we have we have a full lesson dedicated to volumetric fog, but another really cool part of our search engine here is that it'll actually pull up the documentation in the search results. So if you search for volumetric fog, you're gonna get the search results for volumetric fog. And so we'll embed Unreal Engine's documentation directly in here so you have access to all these resources. This is the complex version. This is the simple version down here. So it's really easy to go through both, but we wanted to make it look super, super simple. But yeah, that is the Unreal search engine. That's everything that you get if you want to get started today. So that is Unreal Fundamentals. So go to Q&A. I'll bring back up the chat. Would love to answer any questions that you guys got and dive in deep, whether it's about filmmaking, whether it's about storyboarding, or about any of the advanced compositing techniques. Would love to answer anything that you got. So yeah, let me know if you got anything. How do you get Unreal to nuke if you already have Unreal Fundamentals? So Candace, thanks for showing up. Obviously you're in Unreal Fundamentals already. Send us an email at learn@unrealforvfx.com, and for showing up today, you'll literally get it completely for free. So yeah, just shoot us an email over there, and we'll get that taken care of by the end of by the end of this weekend. So that's going to be the best way to do that. And then just trying to pull up the chat here. So what's the end? Okay, we have what's the end of sale? And will the course be available for future years? Having that question from Dave. Yes, this will be available. So you get lifetime access when you sign up. This is the link here, just in case you want to check that out. Unrealforvfx.com/go is the link there. But yeah, you'll get lifetime access to everything you're seeing about here. We also are updating this. So you get lifetime updates to the course. We literally have another chapter 13, coming out next month. So it's about control rig. We continue to add to this, and every time I learn something new, we're gonna add it into the training. So that's what's super cool. Anything that a beginner would have to know to make films, we're going to keep updating this. We're going to keep it live, and yeah, we'll continue support into the future. I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to be using Unreal Engine for the next few years at a minimum. I know the workflow. I know it works for me. I'm not going anywhere. So yeah, we're going to continue to update it as we learn new things and as we make new projects and share all the coolest stuff. So that'll be the best place to do that. The Jumble Guy, how long was this render for the Godzilla animation? That's a great question. So that took about 5 weeks to go from start to finish. So that was from, at the beginning, I had zero idea. I didn't have a story. I had no concept of what I was about to make. I didn't download a single asset. And in about 5 work weeks, we were able to finish everything you saw there. So I took a 2-week break in the middle to do some other projects. But yeah, basically from the end of Dune to now, it didn't exist at the start of that Dune project going live. And Dave Kachow, am I able to join the Discord without purchasing the course? Unfortunately, no, you are not, just because it is a private community, because we do the weekly feedback and we offer some extra troubleshooting. We have some extra resources in there, so we don't offer any public access to the Discord, so sorry about that. But otherwise, it is just $99 to sign up and get started today. Try it out, see if it's gonna work for you. Ultimately, the thing for me, I always know with courses, I never really know if it's gonna work from the outside. You can only tell from the inside. And I know that anyone that tries it out and actually experiences it themselves is gonna be blown away by everything inside. So we have a 30-day money-back guarantee. So you can try it out for 30 days and see if it's gonna work. See if it has everything that we say it does. And I promise by the end of it, you'll see by the end. But chapter 12, we end with a bang. The last 2 chapters are the absolute best in the training, and we make it really easy to get you there. We send you daily emails as well to keep you accountable, keep you on track, make it fun, make it easy, and just make it effortless. That's really the thing for me, because I remember how much effort it felt like it was taking when I was learning Unreal. I just wanted to eliminate all that as best as I could. So Carlo, I know some of Cinema 4D and basic VFX with After Effects. Always wanted to know how movies are made. Didn't know that it was made with Nuke. Dude, it's super cool. This, honestly, Godzilla 2014 was the movie. This is a absolute true story. Godzilla 2014 was the movie that first made me realize that Nuke is what's being used in visual effects production. So I was using After Effects as well up until like 2013. Yeah, 2014 was literally when I learned Nuke for the first time, when the movie came out. That's so funny. But it was because I found this article on how MPC made Godzilla 2014. It was an article on fxphd.com. And yeah, I read through it, went to the movie, and I was sold. I was like, I gotta learn this. I gotta learn Nuke. I gotta figure out how to actually do this myself. And it's funny. It's the one software that every studio out there agrees. Just like most studios out there. Anyway, yeah, everyone's using Nuke for compositing. So if you want to use that, or you just want to use those techniques on your own work, Nuke is the best way to do that. But cool. And then Dave, would you be able to check out some of my Godzilla animations on YouTube later and leave feedback in the comments? You know what? Why not? Send me a link. I'm trying to think of yeah, just send a link here. I'll go back to the comments. But put it in the chat here. That's where I'll go back to later. But yeah, super happy to do that. Or do it at learn@unrealforvfx.com. That'd be super cool. Do you prefer Blender or Unreal Engine? So yeah, I'm Unreal Engine all the way. I use Blender when I need to. So if I need to rig something, I do it in Blender. I think the two do work together, but I don't render anything out of Blender. Rendering, I think, is the weakest part of Blender. It works, but one thing people also don't realize is when they use Blender, they use the denoiser. If you are a Blender person, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Use the denoiser. But dude, that denoiser does not work smoothly on animated frames. You need to spend 10 to 20 minutes per frame, and 20 minutes times 24 frames per second. That means if you want to render out 1 second of footage and it takes 20 minutes per frame, it's going to take you 8 hours. It's going to take you 8 hours to do this. I just did the math on my keyboard right here. So that's why I don't use Blender. I want to get instant results. I want instant feedback. And that's why I use Unreal Engine, is because you get to work in real time. And I really, I get that experience and that feeling of being there on a film set, looking over at the lighting artist, saying, hey, can you move that spotlight up 10 feet? And let's change that color from neutral to a blue or a cooler tone. And all those sorts of creative decisions, it just becomes very creative right away. So yeah, we'll also say Plot Gamer. I'm not here to ask a question. I'm actually a sound designer, letting you know that I'm able to help on your projects. Well, dude, send me an email. If you got good stuff, send me your reel. This is the other thing too. A lot of people say, hey, can I help you on this thing? And then they don't send me a demo reel, and they don't give me any context of who they are. And I'm just telling you, I'm never gonna find out. So send a demo reel. We'll put a URL in every email you send. My goodness. That's like another basic thing that, like, holy crap, 80% of people don't leave a URL in that first email. It's like, dude, why make it harder? Make it easy for people to help. Does your product have a return policy? Can you explain that? Yes, so that's basically what I'm saying with the 30-day money-back guarantee, Quince Craft, is that, yeah, you have 30 days to decide, and we basically have a 30-day return policy where you have 30 days to return it. After 30 days, we don't offer returns because, like, you're basically saying, hey, if we're bought in this far, let's go all the way. Let's teach you Unreal filmmaking. It's going to take some time, and then you'll have that course as a resource to help you on your next projects and into the future. So yeah, you got 30 days to return it if it's not working for any reason, big or small. Don't need to give us some lengthy explanation. We're not going to interrogate you. If it wasn't for you, no sweat. We'll give you a return. So yeah, can you explain your Blender and Unreal workflow a bit more? Because I'm still figuring out ways to import absolutely everything into Unreal Engine. Yeah, the quick version of this is I export everything as an FBX out of Blender. So if it's a rigged character, I export it as an FBX and put that into Unreal. And the same is true for static meshes. So, like, long story short, that's how I do it. And I don't assemble materials in Blender. Yeah, I don't really assemble the materials in Blender because you redo them in Unreal anyway. So I do all my materials in Unreal. I just work on the meshes, like the geometry itself, inside of Blender. That's my personal workflow, because when you're in Blender and you're working with geometry, it is in real time. Think about it. Like, when you're in the viewport there, it is in real time because we're not rendering high quality lighting and all that stuff. So we can use Blender for real time when it's real time, and then I use Unreal for the rest of it. So that's kind of how that breaks down. And then Sammy's World. Just made a cartoon short of my character, and I feel like I figured out a good workflow, but let me know. Oh yeah, there we go. So that was, hopefully that helps. That's the quick Unreal to Blender workflow. So guys, if you want, check it out, unrealforvfx.com/go. That is gonna be the best place to go to get our deal before it ends this weekend. Otherwise, I hope you got some really amazing tips on how to jump right into filmmaking inside of Unreal yourself. And yeah, got some time to decide over the weekend. The sale is going to end finally Sunday night. We're going to call it off. You can't get the bonus course for free anymore. So yeah, let me know, and hope to see you guys in Unreal Fundamentals. Can't wait to see what you make, and I will see you in the Discord. Thanks for checking out the stream, everybody, and we'll catch you next time. Take it easy. Peace.